I used to always be super critical of myself, and I hated positive affirmations. I couldn't buy them. They just sounded fake and stupid. Honestly, they made me feel worse. Now, other stuff did help me be kinder to myself and build up my self-esteem, but I just never liked positive affirmations. Now, that has changed for me now. Now I actually like them. But I know so many people who feel the same way, and a ton of my clients also have felt the same way. They hate positive affirmations. So today, we're going to talk about what you can do to improve your self-esteem, even if you hate positive affirmations. Okay, so for those of you who follow me, you know that I like to climb. And last summer, for my friend's 40th birthday, I went climbing with my favorite people. We've been climbing together for 14 years. And somehow during that time, I got older. And I had 4 kids inside of me who are now outside of me. So we go to the crag, and I hop on a route that I used to do, and I flail. I cannot even get up the start. And the negative self-talk begins. I'm so old. I'm so weak. I'm so bad. This route is so hard. This limestone is too slippery. Now, I recognized these lines pretty quickly. I got into a bad habit of beating myself up when I was a teenager, and it took years to undo. But in my 20s and 30s, I did a lot of work on my self-esteem. But once in a while, these old thoughts come up again. So I'm going to teach you some things that have helped me replace negative self-talk with something healthier. Now, negative self-talk is really common for people with anxiety or depression, and it's probably one of the leading causes for low self-esteem. I've heard clients say, I'm such a loser. I can't do anything right. It's all my fault this happened. I can't handle this. Why am I such an emotional wreck? I'm so stupid. Nobody likes me. I should be better at this by now, right? This negative self-talk just seems to come really easy for many of us. But if I were to just try to say something positive to myself, I'm the best climber, I'm a great climber, I'm so strong, I'm so fit, I'm so young, I would feel super stupid. I just can't buy it. So for me, and for many of my clients, it just didn't work at the time to replace the negative self-talk with positive affirmations. Now, the old me in this situation maybe have gotten really frustrated and down and depressed. But I think I'm learning a bit as I go on in life. So I'm going to teach you 5 strategies that have helped me improve how I talk to myself, which has improved how I feel about myself and how I feel in general. Okay, so here's the first one. The first step is to question all of this negative self-talk. So when I hear someone use exaggerated language, like all or nothing language, they're going to be using an extreme word. I'm the worst. I never do anything right. I'm a complete failure. Then I know they're not seeing clearly. And I can see this in myself as well. So I'm serious about this. If you can't say a single nice thing about yourself, you're not seeing yourself clearly. You have a blinder on that is subconsciously blocking out all the good things about you. So can we be honest here? If you had a friend in the exact same situation and you would speak differently to them than you would to yourself, you have to admit you aren't being fully honest. But for ourselves, we let our emotions shape our perception. Your negative self-talk might feel true, but it isn't actually true. That's called emotional reasoning, right? You feel scared, so you believe everyone hates me. But your only evidence is a feeling, not reality. Why do we do this to ourselves? Perhaps we want to believe that we're bad because this belief protects us in some way. If I'm just bad at math, then maybe that belief protects me from trying hard. Hoping that you might not actually be a terrible human being requires you to keep trying, to be a little vulnerable, to take accountability. So all this negative self-talk is crappy armor. You've got to be willing to question your thoughts. This is going to open up some space to let something more helpful or more honest come in. So questioning your negative self-talk can help you soften it a little bit. Okay? So that's the first one. Catch yourself lying, catch yourself distorting things. If you wouldn't say it to a friend, you have to be honest with yourself and be like, I'm trying to protect myself with negative self-talk. And it backfires, it's crappy armor. Okay, number 2, instead of trying to say something super duper positive, try to shift to more neutral language. So I couldn't have believed it when I said, I'm an amazing climber and I'm definitely going to climb this route perfectly. Stuff like world's best boss makes me want to barf a little bit. But I can get behind these more neutral statements more easily, and especially when I struggled more with my self-esteem. But things like, I'm trying hard, I'm getting stronger, I'm tough, look at me move uphill incrementally, or it's great to be back here with my friends. So when I was climbing this route, I literally was like, yeah, look at me trying hard. This is hilarious. But like, I was just, instead of like beating myself up, using more neutral statements. The other day, I was cooking cinnamon rolls and I almost said out loud, I'm a terrible cook. And honestly, cooking's not my forte. But instead, I caught myself and I said, whew, I'm learning how to cook cinnamon rolls. It was my first time cooking them, really. Dairy-free, at least, because my kid has dairy-free allergies. Okay, I'm off on a tangent. Okay, when I'm being honest with myself, I can see that those neutral statements are true. So I'm learning to cook cinnamon rolls. Absolutely true. Way more helpful than saying, I'm a terrible cook, right? It's more honest and more truthful to say, this is challenging, but I'm trying my best. Okay, now I get it. You can't go from like super negative self-talk to super positive affirmations. You can't go from being a couch potato to being a marathoner in one day. You can't go from beating the crap out of yourself mentally to being super duper confident and positive. But this is a skill you can learn little by little. So let's break down these first two steps with some examples. Let's use an example like, I'm the worst person ever. Okay, let's challenge this thinking. Is it true? Are you actually the worst person ever? I mean, I can think of a few people who might be worse. You're probably exaggerating here, so let's be more honest and let's reframe to neutral. I did some things right and I made some mistakes. Or how about this one? I'm a terrible friend. Are you really a terrible friend? You can challenge this thinking by looking for exceptions. There was that one time you were a great listener for Martha, or the other time you helped out Fred. Now, we aren't doing this to justify bad behavior, but rather to see more clearly and honestly, because you cannot make real progress by holding on to a lie. So you've got to acknowledge both sides of yourself, that you do some good and you make some mistakes. And when you can do that, you're going to build some traction. Okay, number 3, let's get clear on the person you want to be so that you can know if you're building up a good, purposeful life. Now, I worked for a pizza restaurant for about 4 years to save for college. And at this restaurant, we were supposed to pay 50% of the cost of the food that we ate. But sometimes the manager would give us a pizza, or sometimes there would be a pizza that no one picked up. They called in, but they didn't pick up. And that pizza would surreptitiously be taken into the dish room and me and my coworkers would eat it. But also sometimes I would just make myself a salad and some garlic toast and I would go into the dish room and eat it myself. And I justified what I was doing by saying, oh, they don't pay me enough, or the manager sometimes lets us have free food. But one day I was filling out a job application for a different job and it asked, have you ever stolen from your employer? Check yes or no. And in that moment, I knew that I was being dishonest with myself. I was stealing. And at that moment, any positive self-talk would have been a form of self-justification, an excuse for me not living up to the kind of person I wanted to be. Honest, upright, trustworthy. So instead of trying to talk myself into liking myself, the next time I went back to work, I asked my boss if I could talk with him, and I told him that I'd been taking food without paying for it. Like, this was so uncomfortable, and I definitely cried a little bit, but he was super kind, and he said, go ahead and pay me back what you think you owe. And I did. I made it right. And that felt amazing, right? Now, when I realized I had been stealing, if in that moment I had beaten myself up with negative self-talk, like, oh, Emma, you're a terrible human being, you are despicable. Or if I had justified myself, Emma, they don't even know how great an employee you are, so they owe you pizza, right? Neither of those ways of talking to myself would have helped me line up my actions with the kind of person I want to be. I want to be honest, upright, and trustworthy. That starts with me being honest and clear with myself, which sounds like I'm trying to be a good person, but I made a mistake. I'm going to try and fix it so that I can work towards being more trustworthy. Now, none of us are going to make right choices all the time, right? We're all going to make a mistake. So how can we still talk to ourselves in a healthy way? You want to get clear on the kind of person you want to be. So I want to be honest. And then you strive to be this person. But then again, how do you handle that gap? We all have this gap between who we want to be and how we sometimes are. We're going to use growth instead of perfection as our way of evaluating ourselves. And this is going to change your self-talk and your self-esteem. So let's talk about tools for measuring. Both a yardstick and a compass can be used to navigate somewhere. A yardstick measures distance and a compass measures direction. A mental yardstick asks, how far have I come? Have I arrived yet? This can lead to perfectionism and backsliding into negative self-talk when we see how far we still have to go. Perfection is the wrong measure for self-esteem. It leads to us being fearful and rigid. Instead, we want to use a mental compass instead of a ruler to check if we're on the right track. So a compass points us toward a direction, This is a metaphor for using our values to point us toward the kind of person we want to be. With a mental compass, when we mess up, we reorient ourselves toward our valued direction, and we keep moving forward. If I'm working on being honest, loving, trustworthy, then I'm making progress. It's a growth mindset with a clear direction. So with a growth mindset, your self-talk will frame your experiences as opportunities to learn rather than failures. So for example, instead of saying, I can't do this, you might say, I haven't mastered this yet, but I'm getting better at it. This is all about focusing on progress instead of perfection, even if the results are perfect. So for example, instead of saying, I failed, you could say, oh, I worked hard on this and I learned something valuable. So remember, self-esteem doesn't come from plastering positive self-talk onto a negative lifestyle. True self-esteem comes from choosing the kind of person that you want to be, seeing yourself clearly, and then really striving to line your actions up with being that kind of person. Now, when you have depression, you're going to see yourself also, you're going to believe you're bad when you're actually good. That's not what I'm talking about. You have to be honest with yourself, and you have to pay attention to small wins. So that's the next step. When you make a tiny bit of improvement or you make a good choice, you're going to celebrate that. And I don't mean just like thinking a nice thought about what you did. I want you to make it strong. I want you to emphasize it. I want you to say it out loud, write it down, tell other people. For example, in my team meeting every week, I ask people to share a win they've had in any aspect of their life. Now, because your mind naturally pays attention to the negative more than the positive, you've got to exercise this muscle of paying attention to your wins. When you notice your wins every day, you'll remind yourself that you're moving in the right direction. So I recommend that you do the 3 good things exercise. Every day, write down 3 good things that you did that day. And this helps you rewire your brain to notice the good that you do. Okay, here's number 5. We're going to replace judgment with compassion. So instead of judgment, comparison, or negative self-talk, you're going to start to treat yourself with compassion. Self-compassion is the act of treating yourself with grace and love. Compassion isn't love like I love cake and I hate broccoli. That's essentially using the word love to judge which things are good and which things are bad. So when we treat ourselves with compassion, we are not judging ourselves as good or bad. Compassion is feeling with someone, even yourself. It's about seeing the struggles as part of what we all go through as humans. It's recognizing that we're all in this together, which creates a sense of connection instead of judgment or separation. It's talking to yourself like you would talk to a dear friend. Now, as a mom, I need compassion all the time. I remember one time when my oldest daughter was about 5, I was pregnant, I was so tired, and she was not listening or going to bed. And I got upset and I yelled at her. After she was finally settled, I sat down on the floor in the dark with my back against the wall, and I was feeling like I was the worst parent in the world. I never wanted to treat kids this way, but this wasn't the first time. And I was beginning to sink into self-hatred and despair. I'd learned about self-compassion, but it had never really resonated with me. But this night I gave it a try. So I told myself the truth, which was, Emma, you do a lot of good things for your kids. You also make mistakes. You feel really bad because you're trying hard. Even if you make mistakes, you are worthy of love. That's how you treat your daughters. You're a good mom. You are worthy of love and happiness and good things. And as I sat there, I felt my despair melt just a little bit, like it was replaced with this tiny glow of compassion, of kindness towards myself. Now, let me ask you a question. Do you think it would be easier for me to be kind toward my daughter tomorrow if I continued to rage at myself? Probably not. And that's the beautiful thing about compassion. It's actually helpful. Self-compassion might sound like, I'm learning and growing. That's what matters most. I don't have to do everything perfectly. It's okay to rest. I'm allowed to have feelings, and these feelings won't last forever. I'm human, and it's okay to have flaws. I am worthy of love and respect just as I am. I'm not alone. Everyone struggles at times. Saying these things with gentleness and kindness towards ourselves is one way that we practice self-compassion. And I understand this can be really hard to practice if you've been self-critical for a long time. So give yourself time to get good at self-compassion. Don't try to force yourself to feel self-love before taking the action of just talking to yourself with compassion. You've got to start by taking an action of kindness, even if you don't feel like it. So here's a couple of small ways you could get started. You could start with small, neutral acts of self-care. So this might mean taking care of your basic needs, like washing your face or getting some rest, even if you don't feel like you deserve it. I mean, what I'm saying is like you're treating yourself like someone you care for, and taking these actions can help us start to feel them. Okay, gradual exposure is another one. So you're going to gradually introduce this idea of self-compassion to yourself. You could start by reading about self-compassion, or watching videos on self-compassion. And you don't have to expect yourself to feel it right away. Another thing we can do is we can love others before we love ourselves. And we can use that approach to treat our inner critic with curiosity, kindness, and respect. So acting in love, serving someone, helping someone else can help us internalize a greater sense of compassion. Also, when we're busy hating on ourselves, that's kind of self-absorbed. So as we experience compassion towards others, we can perhaps expand our thinking, expand our hearts a little bit. Okay, another thing you can do is you can imagine the negative parts of yourself, or like the characters from Inside Out. And this is a form of therapy called IFS, Internal Family Systems. And it certainly helps to have a therapist do this with you. But you can practice talking to the negative or hurting parts of yourself with love and kindness. So for example, you could say, "Hello, Debbie Downer. I see you're here. It's okay. I'll listen to what you have to say, but I don't have to believe it." Having a conversation with your parts can help you learn where they're coming from and make space for them instead of trying to hate them into going away. It really is possible to untrain your negative self-talk. In the long run, you can move from questioning the truth of your negative self-talk to gradually using more neutral or balanced language, to building a growth mindset and a foundation for true self-esteem, noticing the positive and treating yourself with compassion. These steps are probably going to feel really awkward or inauthentic at first, but as you practice them, you're going to gradually get better at talking to yourself with love and kindness. I certainly have. I actually really like vision boards and positive affirmations now, and I feel more confident than ever. As you keep practicing, eventually you'll get to a place where you can express confidence in yourself, have a healthy sense of self-esteem, and believe in your abilities to accomplish your goals, and be sure that you're living your life purpose. Now, if all of this sounds impossible, don't forget, I'm not going to reach the top of my climb in 1 or even 10 tries, and no one's going to run a marathon after one training session. Let's just start practicing today. I would love to know how you're going to start. So please share in the comments a neutral, a balanced growth mindset or a compassionate statement that you're going to use with yourself today and tomorrow. Each little training session, you'll get a little stronger and stronger. Okay, thank you so much for being here. Give yourself some positive affirmations just for showing up and listening all the way to the end of this video. And I hope you all take care. Hi there! If you found anything in this video helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could give it a thumbs up or share it with someone who could benefit from it today.